everybody. I'm Skip Alzheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks lunchtime streaming show. I'm going to try to figure out why this is so dark. Do this. Nope, that's worse. I'm going to boost. I'm going to take down the saturation a little bit. I'm going to boost the gamma. There we go. I don't know. Anyhow, we watch old 16mm films, and that was a silent film. It wasn't originally silent, or this is part of the Cornet collection that we've been scanning, and this particular reel didn't have sound on it. And what they would do is this would be a print that they would then marry an English soundtrack with, or a French or German or Arabic or whatever, and that's why it's silent. But the footage is beautiful because it's never been run through a projector or given to a school, etc. Here's some simple demonstrations in static electricity. Enjoy.
Sometimes, on cool, dry days, we get a little shock when we touch a metal object. Static electricity causes this shock. To learn about static electricity, observe some simple demonstrations that show what it does. Perhaps you've rubbed a rubber comb with a woolen cloth, and then attracted bits of paper with it. When the comb and the wool were rubbed together, the friction between them produced static electricity. Friction can produce static electricity. We can produce static electricity by using many different materials. I'll place this page from a newspaper against the wall and rub it with this pencil. The paper is held against the wall by static electricity. I'll rub this balloon against my woolen coat. And when I place it against the wall, it is held in place by static electricity. We say the balloon is charged with static electricity. I can charge this glass rod by rubbing it with silk. I'll charge this rubber balloon by rubbing it with wool. When I bring this charged glass rod near it, the balloon is attracted. Now I'll charge a rubber rod by rubbing it with wool. The rubber rod pushes the balloon away. It is repelling the balloon. The glass rod attracts the balloon. The rubber rod repels it. The charge on the glass rod does not act the same as the charge on the rubber rod. The two charges are different. To see what causes the two kinds of charges, we have to think about atoms. Most of us know that atoms are very tiny, so tiny that there are many millions of atoms in this pencil dot. This model will give us an idea of the parts of an atom. Every atom has a center, called a nucleus. In the nucleus are particles called protons and neutrons. Each proton has a positive charge. Around the nucleus are particles called electrons. Each electron has a negative charge. Every atom has two kinds of charges, positive and negative. Usually an atom has the same number of positive charges and negative charges. But when we rub certain materials together, electrons may be lost by one material and gained by the other material. Now let's look at the electrons of this atom. When an atom loses electrons, it no longer has the same number of positive charges and negative charges. There are now more protons than electrons. The atom is positively charged. This atom has gained electrons. It has more negative charges than positive charges. It is negatively charged. Remember that the gain of electrons causes a negative charge. The loss of electrons causes a positive charge. As I rub this glass rod with silk, it loses electrons and becomes positively charged. I'll charge the other glass rod and bring the two of them together. The rods repel each other. Will two rods with the same kind of charge always repel each other? Let's try the same thing with two rubber rods. As I rub each rubber rod, it gains electrons from the wool and becomes negatively charged. The two rubber rods with negative charges repel each other. The two glass rods with positive charges repelled each other. The two rubber rods with negative charges repelled each other. What will happen if I bring together the rubber rod with its negative charge and the glass rod with its positive charge? The two rods attract each other. Let's remember that like charges repel, unlike charges attract. Here are some cereal grains. I'll charge this rubber rod and bring it near the grains. The rod with its negative charge attracts the grains. Why does this happen? We learned that unlike charges attract. But are the cereal grains positively charged? Let's try it with a glass rod, which is positively charged. The grains are attracted to the glass rod, too. We know the cereal grains are made up of atoms with positive and negative charges in them. This rubber rod with a negative charge must be attracting the positive charges in the atoms of cereal. The glass rod with a positive charge must be attracting the negative charges. Like these cereal grains, all matter is made up of atoms which have electrical charges in them. All matter is electrical. If this is true, my body must be electrical too. Let's test to see. First, I'll give this rubber rod a negative charge. It attracts the cereal grains. But now, after I rub the rod against my hand, it does not attract the grains. Some of the electrons from the rod went onto my hand, so the rod is no longer charged. Like all matter, my body is electrical. Is water electrical? I'll let a thin stream of water flow out of this container. Watch the water closely as I bring a charged rubber rod near it. The electrons on the rod are attracting the positive particles in the atoms of water. To produce large charges of static electricity, we can use a machine like this, called an electrostatic generator. Inside the generator, there is a wool-covered roller. As this rubber belt moves over the woolen roller, the charge is produced. The belt carries the charge to the top of the machine, where it collects on the outside of this metal dome. To produce a strong charge, I'll turn the roller quickly with a motor. The charge soon becomes very great. We've seen 4 important things about static electricity. We saw that friction can produce static electricity. There are positive and negative charges. Like charges repel. Unlike charges attract. And all matter is electrical. Remembering these 4 important ideas will help us as we learn more about static electricity and the way it behaves.
Yes. Rubbing a rod on your hand and balls, all that stuff. Yes, I get it. I get it. I guess there was a threshold where that type of humor, I don't know. I just have low threshold for it. But I certainly do like potty humor. But for some reason that was just like, yeah, all right, whatever. I get it. Yes. Who's who in the zoo? Oh, yeah, before we get started with that. Yes, thank you so much for donating. Both Kevin and... Excuse me, who was the other person that donated? Someone donated $2, and I appreciate that. Cannot find it. Anyways, speaking of donating, I was talking with Joel Hodgson yesterday and his producer. They are doing a new Kickstarter campaign and for the next season, and AV Geeks will figure into it. They want to do 12 episodes, and each episode will have a short, and AV Geeks will provide the shorts for a little bit of a compensation for our time, etc. But so if you like Mystery Science Theater, I'm putting that's not right. That's not right at all. I'll put the link in the chat, and you can visit that. And we will be doing is supporting them, but also supporting us, getting our films out there and laughed at by professionals. Okay, where was I? Centron. Centron film, Who's Who in the Zoo. And this has a pretty great soundtrack. I really like it. Enjoy.
There's so much to see at a zoo that it's easy to miss some things, especially if they are things that are behind the scenes, things that don't call attention to themselves. which doesn't include the animals. Who could miss that? The animals may be the stars, but there wouldn't be a zoo without people. People who understand and love animals. The boss of all the animals and the workers in the zoological park is the zoo director. He is the man who makes sure that all of the animals are properly cared for and that the zoo is kept running smoothly from day to day so that people can enjoy all of the animals.
As a child, I thought of the zoo as an animal wonderland, and I still do. And I thought working in the zoo would be a fascinating experience, and it is, because animals are so diverse. They're found the world over. And as much as we would like to go to the various parts of the world, and it's possible in this age of jet travel, it's not best for the animals because it would destroy their environment and upset the natural balance of things. So as a zoo director, it is my job to bring the animals to you, to the people, in a manner that is best for all concerned. The greatest thing about the zoo is that it's a first-hand experience. You can see an animal on television or in films, you can read about animals in books, but nothing replaces the living, breathing creature to make a lasting impression. Doing all the things that it takes to make a good zoo operate properly sometimes leaves me with less time than I would like for the animals themselves.
The zoo director's main job is to make plans and see that the plans are carried out. To do that well, he must know many different things about animals, their needs, and their care. It's the director who decides how animals will be grouped in the collection. Why do you suppose zoos are often organized so that similar animals are together? Snakes with other snakes, large mammals near other large mammals, birds with other birds. Is it because animals which are somewhat alike like to be close to each other? Is it because people like to see all the members of one family of animals together? Or is it because related animals may have similar needs and grouping them together makes it more convenient for the people who care for the animals? A very important duty of the zoo director is getting the animals which make up the collection. Sometimes the director learns of an interesting animal he wants to add to the zoo by reading in the newsletters which other zoos send him.
I see that you folks have a young pair of baby jaguars that were born in your zoo that are available for trade. We have a young pair of Alaskan brown bears, and I wondered if we could work something out.
Sometimes a zoo gets a new animal by trading with another zoo, or by buying the animal, or even as a loan. But some of the most exciting new arrivals are those born at the zoo. There are not as many wild animals in the world as there once were. Many kinds of animals are dying off. When all of one kind of animal has disappeared, we say that it is extinct. How would you feel if gorillas became extinct, so there would never be another gorilla in all the world? Can you see how zoos might help save many kinds of animals from becoming extinct? This baby golden eagle was born in the zoo. It's now just 11 days old. Golden eagles are becoming very rare. It is a proud day for zoos everywhere when one of them can announce the birth of some type of rare animal which has never been born or hatched in a zoo before. A zoo director often works with people who do not take care of animals. This zoo will soon have a new exhibit. The director had to work closely with the architect who drew the plans for the new building. Why should an animal expert have to help with the plans for the building? Well, who else would know that a floor for elephants must be warm because they are likely to get arthritis, and the floor must be very smooth to keep from hurting their tender feet. On the other hand, a floor for giraffes must be very rough to keep the animals from slipping and to help wear off their hooves. Often, a zoo director will spend as much of his time working with people as he spends with animals. The zoo director tries to make as many friends for the zoo as he can because the friends of the zoo give money to buy very valuable animals or pay for new buildings. A curator, the zoo director's chief helper, works with him both in watching over the care of the animals and in handling the business side of running the zoo. Does it surprise you to learn that there is a business side? The curator hires many of the people who work in a zoo and makes sure that they have available whatever they'll need to do their jobs. That's part of the business of running a zoo. It's the curator who also decides on the work schedules of all the keepers and other workmen at the zoo. X's show when a day off will be. Why don't all the keepers have the same day off? The zoologist is an animal specialist. Not many zoos can afford to hire a full-time animal doctor, but the zoologist decides on how to take care of healthy animals and on special care for any animals that might need it. Say, if there's a new baby who needs some extra mothering for a while, or if there is a simple injury or mild animal illness which needs to be treated. A zoologist also plans the menu for all the animals in the zoo. Do you suppose this diet is for a tiger? Actually, you might eat this diet and stay well and healthy on it. For it was planned and prepared for a primate. Who else do you know that is a member of the primate family? Both zoo director and zoologist will work to increase the number of rare birds or mammals. Sometimes they will use an incubator. That's a kind of warming oven with very gentle heat, set at just the right temperature in order to hatch eggs of such large birds as the rhea. The keepers have the responsibility for working directly with the animals. A big part of the job is keeping the animals and their homes clean. There's the daily bath for the elephants, the daily change of water and clean out for the hippo pool, and cleaning the floors of many of the enclosures. Popular with both the animals and the zoo visitors is the keeper's duty of feeding the animals. The keepers also take care of training the animals that need it. You may have thought the animal show put on by the keepers and some of the zoo animals was just to amuse you. Well, it's nice that zoo visitors do enjoy the training sessions, but they are put on more for the good of the animals than for the audience. First of all, the training gives the animals needed exercise, but even more important, they get the animals used to taking directions.
Okay, send it down square. Hold, Sunda.
If it is ever necessary for Sunda to kneel down so that her toenails can be trimmed or so that a medical checkup can be done, the training will have prepared her to cooperate. That's why keepers and animals go right ahead with the training, whether or not any visitor is around to call it a show. A very important duty for the keepers is making out daily records on each of the animals they tend. Notes are made not only on the medicines or foods an animal has been given, but also on how it's acting. The publicity director may put out a zoo magazine to share with the friends of the zoo and with other zoos across the country. Almost anyone who works at the zoo may be asked to write an article or to take the pictures for the zoo magazine. The zoo docent is most likely to be the person you see if you make a field trip to the zoo. Docent means teacher, often a teacher who doesn't work full-time. And the zoo docents often are volunteer workers who act as guides without pay. You are probably an animal lover yourself. Many zoo visitors are, but there are many, many other animal lovers, most of them working behind the scenes, to whom we owe a great deal. It is because of them, the who's who at the zoo, that we enjoy the excitement, the fun, and the educational experience of a visit to the zoo.
Yeah, I have a lot of films about zoos, but this is one of the few that actually talks about the people that work at the zoo. Really fascinating. And of course, everybody that watched this was like, I want to work at a zoo. All the kids. I want to be a vet. All right, so behind me, you see a variety of paper tape on this reel. This came to me from Craig Baldwin, and he says, birthday gift for Skip, because I guess he figured out it was my birthday. Skip, this will blow your mind. It's yours to keep. And then it says, opt track only. So it's just the optical track for a film. And so you want to watch it? I'm intrigued. So let's see. And so what I'll do is excuse me. This will be the opposite of what we started the show with, where we had visual information but no sound. So this is sound information but no visuals. So this is Craig Baldwin's gift for Skip. Enjoy.
Give me a cigarette, will you?
Come on, cut that shit out.
Wow. Go light?
Give me a cigarette, didn't it? Oh, cut it out.
Thanks. Yeah.
What do you fucking think about it?
You know, you're a fucking kiss-ass, Harris, I tell you, man.
Oh, come on. Cut this shit out. We're gonna go eat in a few minutes. Gotta get the place cleaned up.
Here are those new forms, Thomas. Take care of them, will you?
More forms?
Get away from me, old man. Oh, come on.
You've got the inmates in here, in custody, safely put away. Maybe. You know about jails, about prisoners. The names change, but the cast of characters remain pretty much the same. In here for everything from failure to provide to homicide. Safely put away? Maybe. But maybe they could hurt you, kill you, wipe out your future.
We'll save this for another time. And I know half of you were like, yeah, let's hear it. And the other half are like, no, stop it. So I know it's frustrating. So instead, let's watch a film about... That was a film about fires in jail. Let's watch a film about fires in hospitals. I don't think I've shown this one. No. All right. Here we go. Fires in hospitals instead of fires in jails.
Evacuation. The result of preach as this does not simply happen. It happens because of emergency situations. Hospital patients and those in patient care facilities in most cases depend on you for their lives in an emergency. Experience proves that adequate training and practice result in knowledge retained during a crisis, while book-learned procedures may be forgotten. A procedure plan can be excellent in theory, yet completely ineffective in an emergency if it has never been rehearsed and drilled. There is no substitute for training and drilling in effecting a set course of action to be used in a time of disaster. Fire department files can illustrate numerous cases where loss of life and property damage could have been minimized had the institution personnel been trained in emergency procedures. The purpose of training and drilling is to condition you to react instinctively and effectively to a given emergency situation.
Good morning. My name is Deputy Chief Ranke. We in the fire service know well the meaning and advantages of pre-planning. This is why we strongly feel that all hospital personnel and those working in nursing homes and institutions must be involved in pre-planning for any emergency in an institution, for the relocation of patients, and for the possibility of an evacuation. We are together this morning to train and practice methods of moving patients to safety. First, we must discuss several important topics that are necessary for a successful evacuation. We are looking at the third floor of your building. You must know where the exits are in your respective working areas. The stairways will serve as your vertical access point, and the smoke barrier doors will be your horizontal evacuation separations. You must know where the fire alarm station is, the location of fire extinguishers and standpipe hose lines, an area where the patients may be moved to, in the event of an evacuation or relocation, as it will be in most cases. In the event of a fire or emergency, the following order of action is recommended. First, remove any patient in immediate danger. Second, sound the fire alarm to alert the fire department and the staff. This is second only to the rescue of patients in immediate danger. Third, close all doors, fire and smoke barrier doors, doors to patient, treatment, and utility rooms. Fourth, extinguish the fire if possible. Fifth, begin relocation of patients and prepare for evacuation if necessary. Last, reassure all patients. The following order of removal for patients is suggested. Those in immediate danger, all ambulatory patients under supervision, bed patients close to danger area, bed patients connected to life-saving devices who must be removed in their beds. You will have to pre-plan for each type of patient. Vertical or horizontal movement will depend on the type of building and emergency situation. It must be remembered that horizontal evacuation in a high-rise building can only be used when a patient can be taken to an area which is protected by fire or smoke barrier doors, or through a corridor to an adjacent building protected by an approved fire separation. If this is not possible, then vertical evacuation will be necessary. by use of stairways and fire escapes. In the event of an emergency occurring in the evening or early morning hours, there will be less help because auxiliary personnel are not available. This must be considered in your emergency plan. Your institution's fire brigade is most important because it will help carry the workload until the fire department arrives. There is one more thing I would like to call to your attention. There is no one set plan for an emergency in a patient care facility. It will depend on the type of emergency, but training, pre-planning, and knowing how to handle patients in the event of an emergency will make the job that much easier for you and the staff. The universal carry is a method of removing a patient from the bed onto a blanket on the floor. It is a quick and effective method for removing a patient who is in immediate danger. This carry can be used by anyone, regardless of the size of the patient. When you approach the bed, stay low, because if there is a smoke condition, the smoke will have a tendency to rise. By staying close to the floor, you will not have to breathe the smoke and heat. Now spread the blanket, sheet, or spread on the floor. Place 1/3 of the blanket under the bed. Leave about 8 inches above the patient's head. Grasp the patient's ankles and move the legs until they drop over the bed at the bend in the knees. Place your hands on each shoulder of the patient. Slowly pull your hands toward you until the patient is in a sitting position. Encircle the patient with your arms. Place your arms underneath the patient's armpits and lock your hands together in front of him. Slide the patient slowly to the side of the bed and lower to the blanket. If the bed is in a high position, allow the patient to slide down one of your legs. Always protect the patient's head. Gently lower the head to the blanket. Wrap the blanket around the patient. At the patient's head, grip the blanket with your hands above each shoulder. Do not let the head snap back. Place the patient in a half-sitting position and pull the blanket toward you. The blanket will slide easily on the floor, allowing you to move the patient to safety. The cradle drop is a patient removal that may be used with success, providing that you are similar or larger in size than the patient. With the blanket on the floor, 1/3 of it under the bed, slide one arm under the patient's head and grasp the opposite shoulder. Position your other arm under the patient's legs at a point midway between their knees and body. Pull the patient to the edge of the bed. Do not jerk the patient out into midair, but gently pull him toward you by rocking back into a sitting position and lowering to the blanket. Protect the patient's head by lowering this part to the blanket last. Wrap the blanket around the patient. Grasp the blanket above each shoulder of the patient. Do not let the head snap back. Place the patient in a half-sitting position and pull the blanket toward you. The double cradle drop is recommended for 2 rescuers to use on patients who cannot sit up or where one person cannot handle the patient. With the blanket on the floor, 1/3 of it under the bed. A, you handle the top half of the patient. B, you handle the bottom. A, slide your arm under the patient's head and grasp the opposite shoulder. Your other arm goes completely under the body at the waistline. B, slide your arms under the legs on both sides of the knee and extend through to support this half firmly. Don't jerk the patient out into midair, but together, gently pull her toward you by rocking back into a sitting position and lowering to the blanket. Protect the patient's head by lowering this part to the blanket last. Wrap the blanket around the patient. Together, move to the patient's head and grasp the blanket above the shoulders. Do not let the head snap back. Leave the patient in a prone position and pull the blanket toward you. The universal carry, the cradle drop, and double cradle drop are designed so that you are always lowering the patient. Therefore, you do not require great strength. If vertical evacuation is necessary by going down either interior stairways or outside fire escapes, in most cases, a helpless patient may be taken downstairs by one person. With the patient wrapped in a blanket, drag him head first in a half-sitting position to the top of the stairs. It is most important that the blanket be wrapped tightly to protect the patient. It will make the descent easier. You take a position on the stairs, 1, 2, or more steps lower than the patient. This position will vary, depending on the height of the patient and yourself. Place your arms under his armpits and join hands in front of him. Back slowly down the stairs, maintaining close contact at all times with one of your legs against his back. The patient's lower body will be on an incline with the stairs. In this position, it is easy to move the patient. The swing carry is the best method for 2 trained people to move a patient. No blanket is needed. If the patient is lying in bed, there are different actions to know, which are dependent upon the position you take. To clarify this, the upper part of the body will be A and the lower part B. B, grasp the ankles and move legs off the bed. A, face the patient and place your hands on each shoulder. Pull your hands toward you until the patient is in a sitting position. After she is sitting up, continue to move the legs out until they are at a right angle to the bed. Sit on the bed, take the patient's arm, place it over your shoulder. Join arms in back of the patient. Do not hold on to patient, just each other. Place your shoulder under the patient's armpit. Join your hands like this, under the patient's knees. Together, lift the patient and walk forward in a normal manner. The patient may be lowered feet first when an area of safety is reached. Remember, always protect the head. The swing carry is a method of moving a patient that the nursing staff can use in their normal routine of handling patients. If someone has a cast on the lower part of his body, the extremity carry can be used on most patients, provided they are able to be placed in a sitting position. Again, 2 trained persons may employ this method with success. Each person has special moves to complete, so we shall refer to the upper body as A and the lower B. A, place your hands on each shoulder of the patient. Pull the patient slowly into a sitting position. B, take the patient's ankles and move the legs until one is clear of the bed. If moved further, it will be difficult for your partner to get his hold on the patient. B, simply back in between the patient's legs, far enough to grasp the ankles. Place your hands to the outside of the legs, allowing your thumbs to stay on top. A, move to the rear of the patient. Encircle him with your arms. Place your arms underneath his armpits, locked together in front. Slide the patient to the edge of the bed and maintain close contact. When in position, A, give the signal to move out. Together, gently pull the patient forward, carry him to safety by walking in a normal way. B, it is most important that you keep your arms straight down when carrying the patient. Emotionally disturbed patients who are not ambulatory present a special evacuation problem. The chairlift is a method that requires a straight back chair and 1 or 2 rescuers. With the patient in a chair and the absence of restraining straps, use a bed sheet to anchor the patient to the chair. The bed sheet encircles the patient about chest high, and you tie it in back of the chair. The knot is simple, similar to the knot you use in starting to tie your shoelace. Now, tuck the loose end of the sheet between the patient's body and the sheet around him. For 2 people, you're A, you face the chair in the rear of the patient. B, you take a position in front of the chair, face forward. A, put your foot against the chair and tilt toward you. B, you stoop down and grasp each side of the front legs. Now lift the chair together and walk. If you are alone, tilt the chair toward you and back out. Many people in patient care facilities are medically classified as able to walk. Unfortunately, this description of a patient's physical condition is not true in an emergency situation. For instance, an elderly person may be able to walk at a very slow shuffle, but in any emergency, this type of patient will need assistance to be moved quickly. In the side assist hold, you approach the standing patient from the side. Take her arm and place it in back of you. Pull the patient's arm with your hand that is opposite the patient until her body is tight against you. You hold her arm securely at all times. You encircle the patient's body with your other arm and take her forearm. The patient will feel secure in your grasp and may be controlled very easily. As you can see, the patient cannot fall forward or backward. If the exit path is narrow or the patient is disturbed emotionally, it may be to your advantage to use the bear hug assist on the patient. Approach the standing patient from the rear. Place your hands between the patient's body and arms. Take hold of the wrists. Keep your hands on top, your thumbs to the inside. Fold your arms to encircle the patient around the chest. Your arms will now be in the bear hug position. The patient may be moved forward by you in a confident manner. Most important is that you keep your head to one side of the patient's head so she can butt you. For removal of infants, I suggest the following procedure. With a blanket or sheet on the floor, place 2 babies in each bassinet. Use diapers or small blankets for padding. 4 bassinets can be placed in the middle of a blanket or a sheet. First, fold the blanket over one end. Fold the corners in. Then roll the sides in to form a pocket. Together, grasp the corners and pull the blanket. 2 people can drag 8 babies to safety. If necessary, 1 person can do the job. In an emergency, where you have children in cribs, and it becomes necessary to relocate them, place as many as possible in 1 crib and move them to safety. I would like to call to your attention the carries or methods of removal that we have just finished are for use in all hospitals, nursing homes, and mental care facilities. These are simplified methods designed for anyone working on the staff who may be called upon in an emergency. You have noticed that the methods of removal that we've discussed and practiced are designed for 1 or 2 rescuers, because in many instances, the initial response in the first several minutes may be only a few people. There are other acceptable methods of removal of patients, but time does not permit us to discuss them. We feel that the carries discussed and practiced today will cover most situations you may face.
These patients are your responsibility. They depend on you for many different services during their stay in a hospital, nursing home, or mental institution. But in an emergency, their very lives may depend on each one of you, your instinct, your training, your ability to carry out an evacuation. Everyone who works in a patient care facility has 2 responsibilities. The first is to his profession, whether he is the administrator or director, doctor, nurse, nurse's aide, volunteer, technician, maintenance worker, housekeeper, or dietitian. But in time of disaster, everybody has one responsibility: the safety of the patients and their removal to safety. Can you afford to gamble with the possibility of fire? Have you ever said to yourself, I've been here for years and we've never had a fire, and this is a new building, it is brick and concrete, it can't burn? How familiar these statements are. But if these are your thoughts, you may be tragically wrong. All too often, an apathetic attitude is taken toward fire safety. Many people believe that it can't happen here. But it does happen every day. How well prepared are you in case of fire?
What? My dear child, we haven't had school or books in ages.
No school? Really?
Why don't you get rid of that school book? You can drop them in here.
It'll get all burned up in there.
Well, of course it will, dear child. And so it should. Books tamper with man's basic, natural ignorance. Now, what could be worse than that?
But I can't burn this book. It's school property.
Nonsense! Apple sugar. You just need to get into the mood.
Books are not where it's at, teaching you how to spell cat. I know you'd rather play, so why don't you throw all your books away? Books are made for burning, the fire is already yearning to put an end to any learning.
1, 3, 5, 9, throw 'em in the fire's right.
Put the books in the fire, see the flames growing higher. Burning books is our heart's desire.
2, 4, 6, 8, time to incinerate.
Books will not make you wise, and reading's bad for your eyes. I am sure you agree, so why don't you give all your books to me? Books are made for burning, fire is already yearning to put an end to any learning.
This one here is very good about a man named Robin Hood.
Put the books in the fire, see the flames growing higher. Burning books is our heart's desire.
Though I never liked Tom Sawyer, I won't be a book destroyer.
Books can only confuse, teaching you things you can't use. You should listen to me. Burning your books will set your mind free.
Books are made for burning, fire is already yearning. Put it into any learning. Put the books in the fire, see the flames growing higher. Burning books is our heart's desire. Books are made for burning, fire is already yearning. Put it into any learning. No, stop!
Yeah, so I don't know why it was out of sync, and then I don't know why it fell back into sync, but there you go. Thanks for tuning in today. Appreciate your eyeballs. Appreciate your donations. If you like what you saw, you can hit the thumbs up button, the like button, and we will see you tomorrow. Everybody have a great rest of your day. I have a Zoom call. That's why I'm being short. Take care.